Welcome to another Practical Pet Chat with Lorin Grow and myself, Robert Summer. Lorin, thanks for
Hey,
hanging out.
Rob. Yeah, you bet.
Well, I wanted to talk about something today that I think is really interesting because we hear it throughout the year, and yet there's certain times of the year that people want to talk about dental health for our pets. And for me, that's an everyday thing.
Right.
And so I like the call out. You got to do that to raise awareness. But I also love hearing from people what they actually do or think dental health for their pets is. And there's a lot of myths out there. So I
There
want to
is.
start off by asking you, what is the number one myth that you would just love to see go away forever for pet parents?
I got it. Kibble keeps their teeth clean, much like Doritos keeps
I
our
gotta
teeth
agree.
clean,
Yeah,
or potato chips, or anything like that. It's not possible. It would have to be so hard to
and abrasive.
chip abrasive, and also it's a repetitive motion.
Yeah,
Dogs
the jaws
don't
don't go there.
actually, well, dogs and cats don't actually chew because it's a hinged jaw.
Yeah.
So that sideways movement isn't really, it may look like that to us, but that's not really what that is. So that it's a scraping pattern. No food can do that. It's
Right.
impossible to think that's going to happen. And unless it's something big enough, like a bone, for a dog to be chewing repeatedly, what's going to keep the dog trying to scrape its teeth on something food related anyway? So, yeah, that's my number one. I hate it. It makes me crazy. It's people's go-to excuse, for why they don't brush their dog's teeth, but I feed them dry food, so that helps keep their teeth clean. When the number one animal to need a teeth cleaning is going to be a kibble or processed food fed animal, just because
Yeah.
it's also carbs too, so it's going to sit on the
Right.
teeth and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's my
Okay.
hateful one. What's yours?
Mine is my dog doesn't show any need for it because why? Well, I don't know. They just don't show me any need for it, Rob. They've got white teeth in the front. Everything's great. And I'm like, have you ever been to the dentist yourself? There are a lot of things going on within the mouth, in the gums,
Ew.
under the gums, etc. And so just because you're not necessarily seeing a discoloration or maybe their breath doesn't smell bad, there are still things happening. So at a minimum, have your vet check that out. Um, and I also find it interesting because I'll say to folks, well, so how does your dog or cat react when you're, lifting up their gums to see the gum line?
Right.
Because if you weren't doing that since you first got them, that's a challenge. And then
Yeah.
incorporate any other kind of cleaning tool, and it really becomes a challenge. And most folks, I just, they're in my face all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, wow,
So
that's
so
interesting.
it's interesting because it was one of the discussions we had a lot at the store, all throughout the year, because it's an issue. It's a major issue, especially for dogs. So I actually would teach people. I'd have them bring their dog, or I'd show
Mhm.
them with Puka, my dog at the counter. And if you just kneel on the ground and put your dog, both of y'all facing the same direction, and then reach around from the back behind your dog and brush their teeth that way, then the dog doesn't see it coming. You have a better shot of getting in there, at least for a second or two longer. You get to work with that a little bit more. You actually have your arms around the dog, so it's a way to hold the dog. And of course you need to try this a couple times. It's neat to start off with doing it with treats,
Yeah,
so the dog starts to feel like, okay, what's going on? Oh, I like this part. So sometimes do a little brushing, give a treat, do a little brushing, give a treat. But it worked fabulously well for people. And it was something when people would say, my dog just won't let me do it, which always amuses me. Your dog won't let you. Okay. So you haven't yet found a way to work with your dog to
right,
accomplish it, is what it really comes down to.
right. Well, and what's interesting too, so your method is one that I use. Um, but I will say, when I look at a lot of folks' dental tools that they're using, the irony is it's more difficult to do it from that way. And I always think to myself, why did they design it this way? Well, they designed because they thought you were just going to be looking forward. So they've got, so you can't get around, can't. And yeah, at a minimum, the wipes, the little gum thing,
Finger
finger brush.
brushes.
Yeah, they
Mhm.
look, honestly, Belle will come up and I can just do it without anything. But because, I did that since she was a puppy, she
Mhm.
doesn't associate that with cleaning. She associates that with, well, that actually feels good.
Right.
And so, step up, step up, step up.
So
The
there's a
other,
manufacturer that created something like a finger brush, but you put your finger into it and it had a handle. So the handle sat in your hand, so
okay,
you could keep a grip on it, and it was just the best one
wow,
out there. I
yeah,
know, it was just brilliant. It was so simple, but it was so brilliant.
wow, I'm gonna look for that. Um, yeah, and I mean, I will say too, we talk a lot about technology and advancements and innovation. Um, the other element is, and if we teach you nothing else, it's that every being is different.
Different.
Because my other part to this is, I've had dogs all my life. I've never had any of them have any dental issues. Well,
Wow.
A, you're either extremely lucky, or B, you're a bit misguided because
Well,
they
that's a
probably
nice way to put
got
it.
something. Yeah, well, I'm in a generous giving mood. I'm a giver. But from the standpoint of, you know, every animal is different. And so every animal's signs of things going on within
Right.
them are different. So you can't always just rely on, well, I don't see them pawing. I don't see them avoiding, certain kinds of food. I don't smell anything. There's no discoloration. Again,
And
you
how
know
old's
your
your
the
dog?
best. Yeah,
5.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. But I'll say this, that's another myth. Oh, I don't need to worry about it because my dog is or cat is only, a year
Oh,
or two
agreed.
or
Yeah,
three.
agreed.
And that's another one that gets me. I'm like, how do you think that starts? Get it when it starts. Number one, so they're used to it. But number two, so you're proactively making sure you don't have to deal with it when it's already
Right.
built up so much. When you've got to then go over to, and this is another one, are there even pet dentists?
Yeah, there
Yes, there
actually
are
are.
pet dentists,
There are
Virginia,
pet
just like
dentists. Yeah.
Santa Claus, except maybe more openly out there. There are pet dentists. It
Yeah.
kills me when people go, oh, there aren't, because there's a lot of times where, the best thing for the pet is to remove a single tooth. And they don't know that that can even be done. And it's like, well, wow. So you're letting your animal suffer because you didn't want to do a little research.
Well,
Uh,
that's interesting because there's a difference between a veterinarian who does dentistry and pet
yes,
dentists.
that's a great.
Because now I was getting some blood work for one of my dogs, and I was hanging out in the office waiting on the tech to come in, and they had a copy of a industry magazine there. So I pull it out and I'm going through it, and there was an article in there teaching and of course selling the equipment for doing crowns for
Okay.
dogs, and especially in the canines, so that the tongue won't fall
Okay.
out. Doing crowns, doing root canals, and doing implants for dogs in their
Okay.
mouths. So,
Doesn't
there
surprise me
me
necessarily,
either. Yeah,
but that's interesting. We'll have to get somebody on to talk with us about the
right.
effectiveness and what the failure rate of that is, because, and also just the dangers and the risks. Like anesthesia is always a
Risk.
risk, yeah, is the only way to put it. And don't want to discourage anybody, but at the same time, you got to be aware of these things. And so that's something that, in particular with Bella, I am really sensitive with her vestibular issues that she has,
Hmm.
um, to avoid anything like that. And I can't see any other possible way other than a deep, deep anesthetic uh,
Right.
to achieve that situation. So it's interesting.
So on the anesthesia thing too, and then also a reminder to people that the sooner that you start proactively doing at-home teeth cleaning, the less likely you will need to be in the vet as early as some people have to be
Right.
for a dental. But it's interesting, the anesthesia, because I know in my group it's come up often, and I actually put together a whole guideline of getting a dental at the vet and the things to ask and the things to take a look at. But so many people have no idea what anesthesia is used for any surgeries. They don't ask, because they don't know. I want to know the anesthesia that they're using. I want to know all of the drugs that they're using. I want to know how long, how many people are in the room. Is the vet actually doing the
Right.
dental, or is it a tech? What's the training of that tech? Where is the vet? Who's monitoring the gas, and or any of the administration, of the anesthesia? How long is the kid going to be under anesthesia?
Right.
And the one thing I recommend, and I know it costs extra, and there is a lot of debate depending on the vets that you talk to and the people that you talk to in the industry as to whether or not it's really beneficial. One of my favorite vet friends, she was a conventional vet for a very long time, and then she moved into integrative and then into full holistic. Before she retired, she was a full holistic vet for I think 15 years. And before that, she'd been a conventional vet for quite some time. But she didn't think she got a lot out of X-rays. And maybe for her and her skill level, she didn't find them necessary. For me, I want X-rays
Yeah.
before my
Yeah.
kid gets a dental. I want full X-rays of the mouth. I want to see the X-rays,
Right.
not necessarily before, but after. I want to know what was being worked at. I take pictures of the x-rays that the vet shows me so that I have a record of it,
Right.
for each kid. And I want to see the areas because it's a lot like anything that you would get repaired. You want to see you want to see what hoses were taken out of your vehicle and what was replaced and where the need was. It's the same thing in the mouth. Show me that there was a need to do that. Where is that? Because I also want to monitor that. I want to be sure that there's no issues, and the other thing too is how conservative is the vet? Have that conversation. Are they thinking that they're proactive? So they're going to remove teeth that are just in early stages of some sort of issue,
Right.
or are they uber conservative? I had one kid, my heart dog, that had such a bad reaction to an anesthesia administration. And this is a different vet, one of my best friends. And I was a little bit in a panic afterwards because it took her so long to recover. And we had a long conversation about it. And I said, she's 16. I just don't see a reason that we need to put her through anything like this again. Well, except that she developed an abscess, a lingual abscess. And I can't let her live like that,
Right.
And so we had a very long conversation where I knew exactly all of those answers. What are the drugs you're going to give? How long are you going to give them? Is that the best drug? What is the after effect? How long does it take to recover? You know, um, let's keep the kid there, so that we know that they're fully recovered before we send them home, because I think she came home too early the time before and she was there the normal amount of time. And so
Mhm.
sometimes you don't necessarily expect to have to do something like that. So it's important to know all those pieces of information, because otherwise you're just throwing the dice, and
Right.
hoping that this person is good at their job and knows what they're doing, and that everybody has got their part to play. But who doesn't have a bad day? What if an emergency comes in? What's the plan? Do we, have somebody in particular that is going to be doing the dental that is usually your person in a separate case of an emergency? And so those are all things that I cover with them. And I
Great call.
always I always leave the caveat. You know how you sign the paperwork when you go in? My paperwork always says that if for any reason this veterinarian cannot perform the procedures as we discussed, please cancel the appointment and we will reschedule because I don't want a plan B.
That's a great, I love that. That's a great call out.
Yeah, I don't
And
want plan B. I want to know, I don't want to hear after the fact. And I've had customers that this has happened with, well, the vet got called to an emergency. So,
right. So who did this then? Yeah,
you know,
that's such a good call out. And I think you and I were so hands on and pushy.
you mean we're helicopter parents?
Yeah, we're helicopter parent. Boy, my kids would agree with that as well, all of them. But yeah, that I haven't run into that, and I don't hear that often. So that's just a really great suggestion and call out. At a minimum, you want to be aware because
So
yeah,
I'm
there's
I'm
so many things.
passionate about this
Yeah,
because I personally been in situations only once. And I've had a number of clients who've been in this situation but didn't know it until after the fact, where someone else did the work
mm,
for whatever reason. The vet didn't come in that day. And I'm like, so when you come in and you're here to see Dr. Smith and you're here for a dental, nobody told you Dr. Smith didn't come in today because he's got a cold, or
right,
he had an emergency or a personal emergency. No, they didn't. Well, I find that to be egregious. If I'm,
yeah,
that's like me signing up to have surgery with a particular doctor and they call in a pinch hitter. I have the right to know that and decide if that's what I want to do or if I want to wait.
right,
And I found out it happened to me one time and I really lost it. I mean, really lost it because I didn't know this doctor, didn't know anything about him, didn't have any discussions with him, had no idea what he did,
right.
and when I wanted to know after the fact, nobody wanted to talk to me because now I'm the crazy lady, who's freaking out because this is normal for them.
For them. Yeah. It's such a good call too, because they don't know all the things that you've pointed out. And so it's not necessarily, they're taking umbrage, and it's not anything necessarily even directed at them, their expertise,
No,
knowledge, or anything else. It's you don't have the full picture that
right,
it would at least given me the opportunity to say, so and so isn't here. We still want to move forward with it. What are your concerns? Then you can make that discussion happen. You can make the informed decision. And I
right.
think back, yeah, because that is, boy, that it's so important. That is really, and very easy. It's that practical common sense thing that you go, wow, I can't believe I didn't think of that before necessarily, but now it's something that will forever be a part of how I
But
approach.
we're subjected to their normal,
Right.
and it's like we don't ask any questions. And it's the case of just as a comparison, when people come in and they bring their notes from the vet or their blood work or whatever, and I'm like, what's the antibiotic for? And they
Right.
said, oh, I don't know. The doctor didn't find anything wrong. Why is your kid on an antibiotic? It says right here, your kid's on amoxicillin. What's it for? I don't know. Call the vet and find out what the amoxicillin is for. Why do we want to thrash the microbiome,
Yeah, right.
in the kid because the doctor wants you to feel like something was done? I'll pay the bill.
Right.
I don't need you to, sign my kid up for now things that I have to fix later on, to get this kid over this. But when you look at how expensive dental care is, when you look at the risk that's involved, it's so, to me, normal to think about, how do I avoid this for as long as possible?
Right.
So I have favorite things that I recommend. What are some of the
Yeah.
things you like to recommend?
Well, the most important thing is right off the bat, the minute they become a part of your family, touching the teeth, looking at getting them used to it. And then, I've got, different herbs that I like depending on which animal. Because one of the things, not to take us too far off on this, but often surprises folks is they think it's the big dogs who need more dental help. And what I've heard
Opposite.
is is that from most of these vets will say it's not the big dogs oftentimes, it's
Mm-mm.
the smaller dogs because it just gets into that, you know, dental system so quickly. And what might have been something tiny for a bigger dog all of a sudden is a huge issue for a small dog.
Well,
So
and I have small
if you're not,
dogs. So
yeah.
you ever try to get your finger in a small dog's mouth? You know, I mean,
I
it's
well,
like putting
no,
a log in their mouth. They're
yeah,
like, "What are you doing?"
yeah, and you don't, yeah, exactly. You go the pinky, not the, the thumb. But yeah, no, I'm with you. It's the same thing with a cat. Like
Yes.
honestly, if that's pincushion time has been my experience.
Yep.
Uh, but that's the first thing for me. That's the biggest tip. And then what things do they tolerate? So it's a myth, but then also as you talk about solutions. Um, what kills me when someone says, "Oh yeah," sometimes I'll let them. They want to see what I'm doing when I'm brushing my teeth because I'll do that to them every once in a while. And I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome. What do you put on the brush?" And I'd rather hear I put nothing on the brush
Right.
than I put just my toothpaste. It's good for me. It's good for them. No. And there is about 20 other things you could try. I won't steal yours because I know you and I have talked enough that I know. But what I will say, there are herbs that I like to rub on the gums as well, that can help when I do see something. And sometimes too, it's as you pointed out, it's the food that they're eating
Right.
can give you false narratives of what's going on in their mouth. And so to me, I think it's almost a cop out as far as my experience because I'm probably that helicopter parent and doing other things. That's not to say though that my pets don't experience any kind of dental issues. I've had some pets that nothing, just amazing, pristine teeth right up through the end. And then I have others that, again, their system is different. And no
Yeah.
matter, I'm doing the exact same thing. You could do it from the same litter and have different results.
Yeah.
And that's that other element. So to me, my I use what I'm going to ask you to share with everybody because you do it better than I do, and
Well, I
I'm doing
mean,
most things.
we
But
use
yes,
the same, we're symbiotic in a lot of ways about how we approach things and how we think. That's why we've been friends for so long. But I mean, and this isn't, of course, nothing applies to every dog or cat, but I don't like artificial toothpaste and things like that. And if you look at the ingredients of a lot of the toothpaste that are out there, they do have artificial ingredients. And lately, I've seen a rash of newer products that have sorbitol and things like that. And I'm like, wait, what? Why?
right,
And one of the companies I asked, they said it was because it allowed the product to attach to the teeth longer. And I'm like, no, I don't like that.
yeah.
I don't, there's nothing I like about that. I don't want that. I don't, I now need to see the science. You know what I mean? I want
Well, and
all of everything that they collected to create this product. I want to see how that gets put together. Not that I doubt that that may be a factor,
sure.
but is it a necessary factor? You
Well,
know?
and it's effective because at the end of the day, too, what we're talking about when you introduce those extra chemicals, this is one of the
Right,
fastest ways for it to get into the bloodstream.
right.
And so I'd rather have less than more. Okay.
Yeah.
Because the other element is unlike when we go get a cleaning or we're, focused on it and they
Hmm.
say, hey, don't, drink or eat anything for an hour. You can bet your dog, your cat, your horse, your whatever is immediately looking to get that taste out of their mouth,
Right.
even if you didn't use anything. It's just a sensation for them. So I'm with you. I don't disagree. That may be their reasoning for it, and there may be science behind it and validity. Cool. If that's something that works for them and the pets that they're serving, great. Probably not. I'm gonna probably make the same decision I think you would, which is I'm looking for less chemicals.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I'm looking
more.
for less
Yeah.
ingredients.
Yeah. Exactly.
I want fewer ingredients and I want efficacy. And so my personal favorite, not every dog can tolerate coconut oil, but my personal favorite is coconut oil, organic coconut oil. It's a single ingredient, antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal.
Yep.
It tastes better to the
Yeah.
to the animals than most of the artificial stuff that's flavored.
Right.
Um, and talk about something that'll stick to your teeth. Oils stick to your teeth and
Right.
your gums a little bit longer, no matter how much licking they do. Is it messier? It can be, but it's a little messy. I mean, I'm going for long-term dental health and trying to keep my kids out of the vet and out of anesthesia.
Well,
And that treats
I
the
just
gum
want to,
well.
yeah, and I just want to call this out because that's a great one for you to start with. That's what I
Right.
like about it as well, because you can put it on your fingers and you're rubbing around,
Mhm.
massaging the gums, getting to the teeth. It's not as messy and or distracting to the pet when you're
Mhm.
trying to put it on a brush.
Right.
Uh, that is one of the things I really love about it. Same thing with some of the herbs that I'll use is just you can do that and it's least off-putting for the animal.
Right.
And so, and I agree with you too. It's nice because you don't have to necessarily get every spot you're trying to get to still have an impact. And
Right.
so, yeah, I love that element of it.
My favorite is, of course, raw bones, but they have to be the right kind of raw bones, and that's where a lot of people make mistakes.
Right.
Um, it can't be cooked, can't be steamed, can't be put in any type of a heated type environment for processing. It can't be smoked. Most of the flavorings are smoke for a lot of bones that are out there. But I'm talking about real, honest to God, raw bones. The problem is that people will give the wrong kind of bone. And it's just as bad to give something that you think will be helpful with the good intentions that is inappropriate and will cause broken teeth
Yeah.
than it is to give the wrong thing. So, for example, I always would recommend bones that were too big to get to the back teeth, other than scraping. So the dog would be, "Arr," and scraping along his teeth, which is ideal because that's what I
Right.
want,
Yep.
and couldn't actually get the bone into the back jaw where the PSI of that bite is going to be so hard that the bone may not give, but the teeth will. It's
Right.
one of the reasons that I'm not a fan of antlers. They're very popular. A lot of people give them, and there's quite a difference between deer antlers and elk antlers and things like that. I don't like any of them. I have seen way too many broken teeth. The
Yeah.
typical answer from people as to when they're told that as to why they continue to buy it is because it lasts longer and it's worth the money. And I'm
Right.
like, the broken tooth is going to cost you more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is not worth the money, in my opinion. That's not worth any of the pain or anything else. And you may not know it for a long time because the dog isn't necessarily going to show that. So for small dogs, I love like rib bones,
Yeah.
that are big enough, or you hold it. And in my house, I have there are bigger gerbils in the world than what I have for dogs. So I don't have real dogs. I have these little things that run around and act like dogs. Um, but they're 3 pounds, 3 and 4 pounds. So I get rib bones and my husband has one, I'll take the other, we hold an end and we let them chew on it. And then that way we have control of that. It's not a weight bearing bone. So it's not going to be as strong as a knuckle bone, a femur, those kinds of things. They can get their little mouths around it. They can scrape their teeth on it. And the bigger bones are saved for bigger kids. But you have to think about the intent and what your ultimate goal is, which is to scrape the teeth, and not that this is something for the kid to eat, even though the kid
Right.
may try, and that's different than like well, even raw meaty bones, which is what some people will do in lieu of a meal on a particular day. Again, get something big enough that they can pull the meat off, but not that they can then bite down on sections of the bone so hard that they either get a piece of the bone off and you have to worry about a shard because you're not
Right.
there watching it, or you've got broken teeth. So, but definitely never cooked bones. Never, never, ever cooked bones.
Yeah.
Never anything like that. Nothing that's going to cause broken teeth or break apart, just scrape the teeth.
Yeah, and I'm so glad because I was waiting to jump in when that you said because you're not watching. I've heard too many sad stories,
Yeah,
and one of the other myths out there is, oh, well, these bones and whatnot are great. Um, Folks that give the ice cubes. I mean, there's a 50-50 out there. People love it, people hate it. I sit there and go, if you've ever run into somebody who has had their dog crack a tooth because of it, you'd be on that side. And so to me, it's when I give a bone, I have to watch, my
yes.
um if she's going outside, I'm going outside. Because I also got to know if she does. If I, hear something awkward, I want to know that she just chipped it. If she's just out there, I mean, Sugar and Zoe for Christmas would get these huge bones, and I just sit out there for 2, 3 hours with them. And when I was going inside, so were those bones.
Yeah,
You know, um, and I think that's where, again, hey, look, different strokes for different folks, different things for different pets, but it never is without awareness and oversight. And you've got to be looking at what's going on. There are kids. That's
right.
part of my argument constantly on the pet parent thing is I got to watch my dog the same way I got to watch a kid. There's
Yeah.
no, there's not any difference because
And stuff happens.
it does. And yeah, and don't beat yourself up. Don't be like, oh my gosh, I can't do this.
No,
That's one of
but be there.
the yeah, but exactly. Be there, be present, don't be on your
Yeah.
phone. I was outside with them, but my face was stuck into a phone listening to a podcast from Lauren Grow. And I understand, folks,
Don't blame me.
that is very enticing. But maybe, put the headphones on and be watching the, dog or your horse or whatever else is outside with you. Those are the things that I think that's where it's kind of we talk about moderation of things
Yes.
often. It's also observation of things. You've got to be observant constantly, and that's where I think a lot of times it's if I give a bone, I'm going to not have to worry about what my dog or so and so is doing for the next hour because they're going to be entertained and occupied for an hour on that. That to me is the scary time
Yeah.
because you don't know what's going on. And that's when to me the accidents happen and the whole I give them
Yeah.
bones and cool.
Well,
What
so
they
many
do with those bones.
clients would leave for work and they give a bully or, and I'm like, wait a minute. Is anybody else home? You just give your
Yeah,
kid a bully when you leave? Oh yeah, gets one every day. And I'm like, oh God. I'm in through my mind, I'm thinking about how small the bully piece can get before they, try to swallow it and choke it on it. If something happens or they get it stuck and
yeah,
then, oftentimes people will come back and say, well, I don't have all day. And I go, I understand, but you don't have to have all day. Just half
right,
an hour or an hour,
right,
whenever you can that you can observe. There's nothing written that says how this has to go. You can fit it into your
right,
schedule. And then the other thing that I got a lot was people who said, well, there's nowhere for me to go outside with my dog for them
sure.
to chew on a bone. And I was like, okay, so this is the easiest training you will
I
ever
was gonna
do.
say, yeah,
You get a sheet and you set that down or a rug that you wash or whatever it is that you use that you can wash easily, and that your kid, you only use that for bone chewing, and your kid will be
yeah,
like, holy cow, the the,
yeah,
the blanket, the sheet, whatever is coming out, it's time. And
yeah,
they'll learn real quickly that they only get that bone as long as they're chewing on that towel or whatever it is. If they get off of
right,
that, they don't get their bone anymore. They'll learn wicked fast how to
yeah,
stay on that. And then all you do is you throw that in the laundry. And
yeah,
it's really easy and you can be right there. You can watch the kid, you're inside. The kid's not outside. This is great for little kids. But I've got customers with big dogs that have done this. That's where the sheet comes in because it's a big kid,
right,
and they're like, I can't believe my dog actually will stay on the sheet to eat this. Well, because they
Oh yeah.
can't have it otherwise.
Right. No, I love that. I've got one for you, and you're gonna love this out there. I actually had to go to the emergency vet, to remove a tree branch that was
Ah,
lodged in the upper jaw part of. Uh, I'm not going to rat you out. Don't worry about. But one of my loving dogs who can fly and
Bella.
yeah, doesn't always appreciate the squirrel circus. And literally, I have thought about that many times when I let her out. It's like, all right, could you just leave the trees alone? Because she got onto the spot, leapt up into the tree to get it, clenched down, broke the branch. And had I not heard, because look, things happen. Okay. No one's asking you to be, okay, I'm going to monitor everything, right? But just awareness. And I heard the snap. I actually thought she had gotten one of the squirrels at first. She didn't, thankfully, because I love all these different animals, differently, of course. But when I heard that snap, I knew something. And then I looked at her and immediately, she's moving around. So kind of like a bone when you're talking about, hey, that what gets lodged. Sometimes it's a splinter, sometimes it
Yeah.
can be worse. And
Yeah.
then we're talking about, if that goes down, the damage, to the esophagus on down into the belly lining, we're just really in this situation for her, I couldn't figure out at first. And so I had to wrangle her and be like, okay, let me see. And I'm not kidding. And by the way, the worst thing you can do, reach in and, try and yank it out. I reached in to see how far it was. And that goes back to, that's why you've got to be able to, put your fingers, your hands, etc. Your dog's choking, your cat's choking, whatever it may be, they're already in a heightened state. And thankfully, Belle wasn't, worried about this. I was able to slide the finger in. Okay, it's not down into her throat. She can still breathe. This thing is lodged hard, and I'm not going to yank it out and risk damaging her jaw. Or these are small beings, even Belle, who's bigger, is still small enough that if I do it wrong, I could fracture her jaw. Try and explain to an animal, oh, hey, your jaw is going to be set for, X amount of time. Just isn't going to
Right.
work. So, how we went, they were like, huh, well, this is the first instance of feeding your dog a tree that we've run into. And I'm like, exactly right. So you just never know. That's the beauty. How they bring us joy and give us this energy. But I just laugh because it's like, yeah, have you? And yet, I see it with the frisbees. I see it with other things that we throw. Um, Sugar one time caught a ball and just clenched down too hard, and it just popped for whatever reason. And it was one of those indestructible ones, supposedly. Nothing's indestructible, by the way. I hope we all know that. Um, but it was like when she dropped it back into me, I could see there was a piece missing. Now I need to know,
Where
well,
is that piece?
yeah, it's not in her mouth. So I got to retrace everything. Thankfully, I found it and she hadn't swallowed it. But if she had, okay, now I've got to understand what's the damage potential for going down into the system, and am I checking every dropping to okay, it's finally out. you know it's not a diamond ring, but it's the health of my beloved soul dog in this case. So anything that's going into your dog's mouth, whether it's
Yeah.
a bone, whether it's their food, whether it's a toothbrush, whether it's that's where we come in.
Well,
That's
they're
where.
they're like toddlers. Everything goes in their mouth. I mean, that's how
Yeah.
they identify things. But that brings up an interesting thing. So, in the last few years, there has been a rash of products that simulate sticks
Yes.
or
Yep.
twigs and disclaimer here, this is my own personal opinion. I hate them. And the reason I hate them is because your dog will not know the difference between
Yes.
that you pick out for him, that you purchased, that you've done the research on, that is safe, and one that he comes across
Right.
outside. And he's
100%.
been permitted to chew on it before,
Not only permitted, encouraged,
encouraged,
because you're
hmm
excited, so they're
hmm
excited. Yeah.
right.
Oh, I
So
did something good in the yard, Mom. Look.
yeah, look, I found one.
I
I
found
found one
one.
of my own.
Saved you some
And
money.
I'm not a fan. And I had a sales rep come in last year and he's like, why don't you like them? We sell a ton of them. I was like, I don't care. That's
Right.
not enough for me. And he's like, but people love them. I go, people aren't understanding how the dog
Right.
can see this. And it's the same thing that I'm not a fan of rawhide. And there are now a plethora of rawhide
Yes.
lookalike products. And my back when they first came out, which was so long ago, really so long ago, when they very first came out, I was like, ooh. People are like, no, no, they're really great because they don't do this, they don't do that. They're not like rawhide because of this, and this. And I'm like, uh-huh. And so I waited because, I'm usually not first to the party because I want to think about stuff and I want to see
Sure.
how what happens to something new when it's first brought to marketplace. And as time went on, I became less of a fan. And I've done this verbal battle with both customers and manufacturers before. And I finally bring it down to, listen, it's just me. I'm happy to
Right.
say it's just me, but it's not going in my store. And can somebody buy it somewhere else? Absolutely. But they're not going to buy it from me. And here's why. Typically, you buy something, it's in a package, and you take the package apart, you give it to your dog. And especially something that looks like a rawhide, it's going to last a while and your dog's going to chew on it. And you may have a few different sizes. You may not know, you may not remember the brand, but it sounded good when the store associate told you it's not like rawhide. It looks like it, but, and you were like, yeah, okay, great. And then you're out and about, you stop at another store months later and you go, oh, uh, Bella's chew is getting small. Maybe I'll pick up a couple more. And you
Right.
don't really remember the brand, you don't really remember too much about it, but this sure looks like it, and it's in a package too, but you don't remember the package. So I'll just get this. And it turns out to be a not so great version of what you've gotten, or it
Sure.
turns out to be real rawhide. And I can't live with the thought of that potential happening because somebody made a mistake
Right.
that I helped to facilitate, by presenting a product that was um, not clearly different than
Right.
a product that is riskier. And
Yeah.
so I never carried them. And I get it. I understand. I know why people use them, why they buy them, and why they exist. It's just for me, I couldn't do it. So this again comes back to you have to look at things from the point of view of long term. If you're the kind of person that you'll take a picture of the packaging and you'll buy the same thing, and you know for sure, and you've done the
Yeah.
research, you know the ingredients, which is, by the way, another thing. Ingredients change all the time, and nobody has to tell you, not just on treats, but on food or anything else. So I always recommend to people snap a picture of your ingredients so that the
100%.
next time you're buying it, this is for human food too, you can look and go, oh, I didn't know they started to add XYZ into this. That's not good. I don't want that. But we get used to buying something and we just keep buying it because we bought it before and it was great. We never recheck anything. And manufacturers count on that. So it's
Well,
a
no, and I want to point out something there because I'm someone. So I have a family member who has a extreme nut allergy. So when I would go grocery shopping, I would experience what you just referenced. Every single shopping trip, I'm notorious for the 2 hour, 3 hour shopping trips back then because I had to look at every single label. And if there's anybody out there doubting that ingredients change, they change all the time, and labels change all the time. And so you could buy the same thing a week apart. It's a different batch and it's got something different in it. And
Yep.
so that is really critical. But I love also, too, your practical tip there, which was take pictures. I do that with almost everything, receipts, etc., packaging, because I want to know. And I don't always, I'm going a million miles an hour. I need that reference point. Let me go back. Okay, yeah, this is exactly it. And the last thing I want to say, in case anybody's out there wondering and worrying. So I am one of those people who does have a particular one that I use. And Lauren is still talking to me. And we're going for quite a bit here. So again, we're not saying you can't, and we don't want to, be associated with you or the products. What we're saying is be aware, make good choices. And if that's a choice you make, okay. But that means you've now made an extra commitment to watching what's going on, to watching what the reaction is. Because the other part that I wanted to point out on this is that, Sugar and Zoe in particular, one did well on maybe one brand, while the other
Mhm.
one didn't do well on the other, or did well on a different brand. And so if you were, a multi-pet home like we were, you were constantly with that. If you give it to one, you got to be aware the other one can get to it and
Right.
before you can ever react. And so those things also factor in. So I just, a couple of things there that I was just like, wow, jumping out of my chair going, yeah, there is so much to unpack just within that two sentences that you shared that I think for all of us, it's just raising that awareness. And at the end of the day, the old cliche of the more you know, well, the more you know, if you haven't thought about it in a while, hopefully, that's something you and I have just raised to them. We are still friends though, right? I just want to double check.
We're always friends. I do
Okay.
want
So,
to mention one more product because I know we have to end this,
yeah, no worries.
but water additives, since we're talking
Oh,
about dental things,
yes. Yeah.
I don't like water additives. I don't want anything ever to taint water. I don't care if there's no smell. There may be no smell for you, but that doesn't mean the dog won't smell it. No taste, odorless. I want water to be fresh. I want there never to be a reason why an animal won't drink their water because of something they pick up on. The other part of it is there's a lot of chemicals a lot of times in those water additives for them to survive the water.
Right.
And I don't want I want to control intake for my kids. So I want to know exactly what's going into them, exactly how much, and at what rate. And if you have multiple animals, if one is drinking more water than another, they're not taking in that product at the same time. There's just no control. It's just a lazy, excellent marketing way for a product, but it's a
Yeah.
lazy way to think you're, achieving something that really you're not. There's nothing really that's changing. It's hitting the tongue. It might hit a couple of teeth on the way down because it's just water, but really you're not doing a whole lot. So to put in the extra work, stay away from additives, stay away from chemicals, and coconut oil. Coconut
Yeah.
oil is a friend.
Yeah. And again, I'll just add my 2 cents is your pet best. I'm not standing there. Lauren's not standing there. We're giving you this advice, and that's really all it is. So don't beat yourself up if you've been doing these things or if you're
Oh,
considering
God, no.
things. All we're trying to do is just say, hey, listen, here's our preferences. Here's the things we've heard, we've experienced, and so as you're making your pathway forward, take those things into consideration. you know I learned something every time I talk to Lauren, which is why we started doing these things. Is just, wow, that's such a great point. And when you see me jumping out of my chair, that's legit, folks, because I get really excited
Me too.
learning things. I am not um, one of those people who I know it all. In fact, I'm the opposite. I am one of those people who's like, please let me learn. That's the exchange. That's the energy. That's that cycle of, wow, I always want to be learning something and gaining something from every interaction, every activity, everything I'm reading, everything I'm experiencing. And that's the joy and pleasure I get from hanging out with my good friend Lauren. So, Lauren, I know we're coming to the end here, but this was great. This is, I hope you all learned a lot. or picked up at least a nugget or two. Because boy, I'm so tempted to dive deeper on the whole water thing
Yeah,
and all of these other elements.
we will.
Because, yeah, there are certainly a lot of things to explore within all that, and I know we will on an
We will.
upcoming
And
practical.
I think that we will get some pushback from certain product manufacturers and things like that. And we know that we're not calling out any products by name, but
Uh,
certainly if we're talking about genres, keep in mind this is our opinions, our preferences.
right.
Everybody is welcome to do what is suitable for them, just as you've said. So, we're not trying to alienate anybody or ruin anything for anybody. We're just giving our opinions.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And if you have any emails you want to direct towards Lauren, because I'm on your side, uh, send those
Thanks,
emails.
Rob. Thanks.
Lauren will be checking the email box this week. That will be
What email?
just up to you. Yeah. Practicalpetchat@gmail.com. And you can find us on different social media and all the rest of that good stuff. But we want it. We want your feedback. We want to know. That's how we learn about things as well that are out there that maybe we haven't experienced yet, or maybe we wouldn't necessarily. I always say this, and if you're a manufacturer out there, and I'll speak for myself, Lauren, I'll let you follow up on it, but please don't blind send me boxes of things and then expect that I'm going to talk about them. My pets, all of them, none of them are guinea pigs. And even if they were a guinea pig, I'm not testing out things on them without having a conversation and really understanding the
Yeah,
product.
that. Yeah,
And, that's something they won't go to waste. I'll donate them to a charity. But that's the one thing I consistently get boxes of
yeah,
things where, like, why, where, and, you know, thanks for sending it to Bella or Gaia or, Hope and Faith. But the reality is, if I haven't had a conversation with you in some way, shape, or manner, I'm
right.
probably not going to also take the time to dive deep on it. Um, the things I'm doing for a reason. But I'm always open to adding. And if you all have some tip, please let me know
Or
because,
questions, or something you
yeah,
want to know in particular. But
yeah,
I'm worse than you. You're at least open to having the conversation. I need to read the ingredients. There's no need for a conversation if the ingredients aren't there to start with.
yeah,
So sending me things is not necessary. We're going to tell you all what we think about stuff in general. Try to answer questions, try to get to the you know place where a lot of people um, may have daily experiences that they were like, oh yeah, that's helpful, or I didn't know that, or oh, I didn't think about that. But I get boxes all the time, and I'm like, no, no, hell no. And it's just like no. And the one or two things that might be acceptable, then it's like, yeah, we could have a conversation about that.
yeah. I'm a little bit lighter than that. I probably have a few more yeses than
Mm.
nos, but
No, I'm not as nice as you are. I'm picky about ingredients to the
I don't
extreme.
know about that. Everybody likes you a lot more than they like me.
Does
Um,
the ingredient thing is such a big point for me. And it's one of the things when I had a store, I had to learn that I'm not putting everything in here that I like. I have to find things that are suitable for a variety of people that fit their budgets and their lifestyle and things like that. So it's not just about what I'm not okay with or okay with. And I got good at that. It was a struggle early on.
yeah,
But I finally got good at that. But if somebody is sending me something, I don't have a store now. So if they're sending me something and they think I'm going to give it to my kids, it's all about the ingredients first. Then it's all about the sourcing of the ingredients. Then it's all about how it's made. Then it's all about the ethics and integrity and who the company is and all that other kind of stuff. So you might as well just hang on to your stuff, and we'll just do our thing over on our side.
well, and it's interesting because I see a little bit of a point here on ingredients, right? And I'm also getting tech these days. And so that's that other part of it. And I will say that's probably where more of my yeses are. Um, any extra insights I can get into my different pets' happiness and or health and well-being. Okay, let's have a discussion. But I agree with you on the ingredients. It always comes down to ingredients. It always comes down to practicality. Does this fit what I'm trying to achieve overall? So yeah, no, great stuff. I love it. Somehow we squeezed another few minutes out of the discussion. So I do want to make sure you all have the email address again.
Yes.
Address it to Lauren.
No.
The email address is practicalpetchat@gmail.com.
Yes.
Find us again on all the different social media things. But Lauren, as always, just such a pleasure. Thank you for sharing.
Same here.
Really appreciate it.
Talk to you soon.